I recently got 100% in every mainline Resident Evil game and even uploaded a video about it. So with the release of Resident Evil 9, I obviously had to go for the platinum. So let's get straight to it. The game starts by introducing us to a new character in the franchise, an FBI agent, Grace Ashcroft. She's investigating the mysterious events of Raccoon City and the recent deaths of the survivors of that tragic day. We are then called into the boss's office and given a job to go investigate a scene of a new death, which is in a hotel that Grace does have some history with, and not the good kind. But we head out anyway and make our way to the first playable areas of the game, Wrenwood. When we get to the hotel, it is dark and run down, but we still head inside and take a look around, and this is what shows us how new Grace is to all of this. The game captures the nerves of the character and how every little sound startles her, really helping to bring the horror aspect to the game. And I don't for a second blame Grace for being scared. I don't even think I'd make it inside the building. I do eventually find a room with a lot of photos spread across the bed, and on closer inspection, the photos are of Grace. We are then dropped into a flashback from 8 years ago of Grace in this very same room, working when her mother walked in. This is not a happy flashback, but would it be a Resident Evil game if it was? The phone rings, and after answering it, the person on the other line asks for Miss Ashcroft, and immediately hangs up, and straight after that, there's a power cut. With this sudden change in events, Grace's mother decides we need to go now. So we don't mess around, we leave the room, Grace's mother is locked and loaded, and we are making our escape from the hotel. We waste no time making our way down to the lobby and run into someone. Luckily, it is just a hotel manager who thinks the issue is just with the electrical panel. We then quickly find out that is not the case, unfortunately for him, and then Grace's mother fires multiple rounds into the attacker before shutting him in the room he collapsed in. At this point, Grace is completely freaking out. Not that anyone can blame her. We just went from sitting on the bed on a laptop to standing in front of a dead man, and our mother has just shot and killed another. She then starts questioning what is going on, and while doing so, we see her mother hide something behind a painting in the lobby. We then continue our escape through the hotel and lock ourselves in another room. Here, Grace decides to phone the police and report not just one, but 2 murders. I mean, what kind of person snitches on their mother after they just saved them? After the phone call and dealing with the panicked Grace, her mother is still ensuring she escapes to safety, but she will not be joining us, because as we head for the door, the lunatic she shot earlier kills her before stating he's found us and collapsing, knocking over a lit lamp and starting a fire. Grace is now completely overcome with grief, and as the fire grows closer, we then return to the present day and can see now why Grace didn't want to come back here at the beginning of the game. Another phone rings, and this time it isn't the landline, but a burner phone, buried under all the photos on the bed. We answer the phone but get no response from the person on the other side. It is this that makes Grace decide to go find out what her mother actually hid behind the painting 8 years ago. We find a folder that was hidden, and it contains her mother's journal that mentions she had already seen a hooded man in the days leading up to that night. In the folder we also find a disc, but we can't do anything with it at this moment. After closing the folder, the police officer from earlier bumps into us complaining about being stung before weirdly staring at the ceiling and showing us he clearly needs to go see his dentist. He then starts to attack us and we get caught on something, so while freeing ourselves, we have to also dodge his attempts to shoot us. We get free, pushing him away and grab a weapon to defend ourselves, stabbing the police officer in the eye, and just as we think we are safe, he immediately gets back up and bites us. We then run upstairs, open the door with the key we picked up during the fight, and after another struggle with the officer, we push him out of the second floor window. In this new area of the hotel now, Grace explores further, finding someone sat in a chair in a dimly lit room. We ask him to identify himself, and he states he is one who lured us here in the first place. He then grabs Grace and chokes her until she passes out. With Grace now captured, we go to the second playable character in the game, Leon Kennedy. Leon sees Victor carrying Grace down the street after capturing her, and just as we are about to start chasing him, we run into a lot of trouble, because just like the police officer Grace had to deal with, Leon now has to deal with a lot of people that have been turned into zombie-like creatures as well. This is where you should start to notice a difference between the 2 playstyles in the game, depending on the character you're playing as. As I said earlier, Grace, you can feel the tension and the fear, and the game actually recommends playing it in first person, which I would think really helps to immerse the player into the game and really feel more of what is going on and add to that tension. Whereas with Leon, the game actually recommends you to play it in third person, which helps add a more action feel to it. And that does make a lot more sense since this is not Leon's first chaotic outbreak. He has come a long way since that horrible day in Raccoon City, so at this point, it's just another day in the office for him. But once we get further down the street, we realise Victor has got away from us. But that's not all. We now see the very illness that has killed other survivors of the Raccoon City outbreak is also affecting Leon. And this is where I get my first trophy. We now return to Grace, who is strapped to a bed, hanging upside down and having her blood collected. She is able to get free, thankfully, and now starts to explore. But when leaving the room, most of the area is covered in darkness and most of the lights don't work. We do eventually find a lighter, which now will help us explore the dark areas, but now that we can explore, I encounter a very terrifying monster and just run. But I don't know where I can go, and the monster catches up to me and kills Grace. It's at the death screen where I can select to continue that I find out that if I had just walked into the room with a light, I would have been safe. I did die one more time trying to escape, but had decided to save this time using the ink ribbon, which got me a trophy, and I eventually get the screwdriver that lets me grab the fuse I need to open the gate. This then starts a cutscene, and Grace is trying to crawl under the gate as fast as possible, but even with the bright lights in the room, she still gets grabbed and is unable to get away, ending the cutscene with a horrified look on her face. We are now back as Leon, and he has just arrived at Rhodes Hill Hospital himself. We are greeted by a nurse and taken to a room. When she returns, she is not alone and unfortunately gets killed by a chainsaw. But Leon opts to not go for the needless backflip like he had done in previous games and just sidesteps the zombie and then gets ready to take them down. I take the first out with a Requiem easily, and another zombie picks up the chainsaw but stabs another with it by accident, and I think I can safely run past them, but instead I get grabbed and get a very unwanted hug. I try again this time, opting to not use a Requiem, and when the chainsaw is swung at me, I parry it, earning my third trophy. Then after I take out the first group of enemies, another lot appear, but just before I get overrun, I pull the Requiem back out and get another trophy for killing 3 enemies with one shot of the Requiem. I then finish the rest of them off using a chainsaw and leave the room. I then find the first Raccoon Memoriam and get a trophy for destroying it, and continue through the corridor, finally getting to the large room and find the very gate Grace opened, and suddenly the cutscene plays again, but this time when it zooms in on Grace's face, it doesn't end and Leon shoots the monster with a Requiem, dropping it and letting Grace get away. The gate that was once open closes again, separating Leon and Grace, but this time on different sides to where they started. Leon now bumps into Victor, who notices he has symptoms of the illness killing survivors, and knocks him out. Grace is now left to explore the hospital and looks to find a way to leave. In the first room we can enter, there is a storage box, and when I store an item in there, I get another trophy. Now, there's a lot of exploring, and the main goal is to get out of the hospital. I first explore the room I started in and find a little blind girl that is locked in a glass room. It's here we find the first key card we need to open up and be able to explore further. I enter the west wing and bump into the cook, who isn't easy for me to get past unnoticed, and he kills Grace with ease. I manage to get past him on the second attempt, take out a zombie with a makeshift knife I picked up, and then find an empty gun in a room with zombies eating on the table. I make my way up to the next floor, and in the bar area there are zombies, and one of them is singing. I run past to start with and find some more ammo and make my way back to take them out. But I have incredibly bad aim and struggle to kill any of them. I run back into the bar, and on the bar itself I find another gun with more bullets, but before I can use it, the singing zombie screams, killing Grace. I eventually find myself back at the bar, but this time I'm better prepared and have kept my Requiem shot. I line up all 3 zombies and kill all of them with a single shot. I then make my way into the chairman's office, grab a red jewel from a box, killing the zombie wandering the room, and get the moon quartz from the lock cabinet. The moon quartz now can then be placed into the door in the main hall, leaving just 2 more to be collected. I then go back to the first corridor that we entered in the west wing, where I can place the red jewel into an empty slot in the door there. In this room, I find a key card that provides access to the east wing of the building, and I can also purchase upgrades from the lock cabinets using the antique coins that I have been finding throughout. The first upgrade I make sure to purchase is the extra storage slots and the stabilizer. It was on to the east wing now, and in the first room we can enter, we find a body with his chest opened and his lungs and heart are missing. And with the game prompting for something to be placed into the body, I guess I needed to find those missing parts. I find a hemolytic injector, which can be used to stealth kill enemies, and once I use it, I get a trophy for killing an enemy with it. The room at the end of the hall, I then found a blood collector, and this is a key item in the game, but one you actually don't have to pick up. It allows us to collect blood from dead enemies and other things in the level, which can then be used to craft items. And immediately after picking up the blood collector, I found a sample to analyse on the computer, which unlocked some crafting recipes, and when I craft an item for the first time, I get another trophy. It was on to the next floor then, and here I find the second office with another lock cabinet, but I can't input the code I worked out as it was also padlocked, and so I needed to find a way to break the lock. And a note I found mentioned getting acid from the lab at the very end of the hallway. So I make my way there and bump into a massive enemy that is blocking the way. I run downstairs and unlock the drawer with the lockpick I had found, earning another trophy. I then find 2 more blood specimens and unlock more crafting recipes, one of them being very useful as it lets me make more Requiem rounds. So instead of going back upstairs to grab the acid I needed, I went back to the west wing to explore the rooms I could unlock now with the security band I had picked up. But while I was here, I now had more Requiem rounds at my disposal. I decided to see if I could kill the chef. And doing that got me a trophy, and I also earned another trophy for using 300 microsamples of infected blood and find the first of the 2 body parts for the dead body. I head back to the examination room now and place the heart I just found into the body, and while in the room, the big monster that chased me down tries his best to get in. So I decided to make my life easier by killing him, as I felt I had plenty of ammo. Doing this earned another trophy that needed to be done as Grace, so I end up being a good idea to kill him anyway. Now I go back upstairs to grab the acid, but I kill all of the enemies in the room first, which included another singing zombie. And once she was killed, I got another trophy for killing the 2 singing zombies in the game. I then grab the acid and make my way back to the room to break open the lock. But when I walk into the room, we bump into Victor Gideon. So Grace doesn't stick around. She runs, but doesn't run downstairs. Instead, she hides just outside the room and Victor leaves thinking she has gone downstairs. Now I can go back in and break the lock and get the sun quartz. And I also find a note that shows how to open an organ storage box. I head straight to the garage now, as that is the only place I hadn't explored, and I find an organ transplant box, but run into a zombie operating a bulldozer. So I take him out and wait for it to actually stop moving. I can now unlock the transplant box, finding the lungs I needed for the body I found earlier. So I run back over and place him in, only for the body to come back to life. Luckily I had some bullets left for the Requiem, making it easy work and picking up the wristband, allowing me to access level 2 doors. There's one door this is needed for, and in here we find the last office for the final lock cabinet. But there is one difference here, and that is the keys don't have images on the code, but instead have braille. So although we know the code, we have no idea which ones to press to enter it. But we do know someone who would be able to. So Grace grabs a level 3 access from the dead body, and we go and grab Emily from the glass rooms. Once we get to Emily, we need to carry her over to the room with the lock cabinet, avoiding as many zombies as possible on the way over. We then drop her in the room with the cabinet with the code, and now have to defend her from the zombies while she solves the puzzle. Once she solves it, we can go back into the office, and all of a sudden a monster smashes through the wall, and it's the very one that we thought Leon had killed earlier on. It grabs Emily and takes her down into the basement, and Grace jumps in after her, earning another trophy. Back as Leon again now, and he is currently a little tied up as Victor is monologuing. But when Leon has heard enough, he breaks free of the ropes and fights Victor, making him run. With Victor gone, Leon updates Sherry with a one-liner as usual, and I am actually hoping there are a lot more of them at this point in the game. So now we have to find our way to Victor's office on our way out to the attic. We bump into another chunky zombie, but there is a shotgun we can grab before the fight starts with him, and my first encounter didn't end well and Leon dies, but thankfully I don't make the same mistakes a second time around and kill him, allowing me to leave the attic, finding myself in the chairman's office. I explore the hospital as Leon now, opening up all the lock cabinets I couldn't with Grace to get as many resources as I can. While doing so, I earn a trophy for defeating 3 zombies with a hatchet finishing attack, and straight after, another trophy for upgrading a weapon. I then make my way towards the objective and have to fend off a load of zombies as we wait for the door to open, and I kill one of them by throwing a weapon, earning another trophy. Once the door opens, we find Victor's hidden office and this is where Leon finds his notes and confirms that the illness he and Sherry have is a T-virus infection. We now return to Grace in the basement of the hospital, and we find Emily locked in a cell, and to free her we need to power it up with 3 joint plugs. We have one which I can use to grab more. And first I go back to where we entered the basement, and there I use the joint plug to open the door and make my way inside and grab a square socket wrench. There is nothing else left to collect in the room, but on my way to the exit, the monster drops down from the ceiling, blocking it off. So we sneak around, avoiding it, and get away and head to the next item, the second joint plug. I open another door with the first one I already had and walk into a powered up room. I kill the zombie inside and find a machine I need a key to operate. So I know I will need to come back for that later. But for now, I grab the second joint plug and grab the first one I collected and used. I now use the wrench to open up the 2 power joint slot and then place them into the slots to power a new room. Here I go to grab the third joint plug, but when I take it, the door I need to leave through shuts. So I need to find a different way to get it, and since we collected the machine key we needed earlier, that must have something to do with it. I head back to that room, and as soon as I arrive, the monster appears. So I quickly run away to a well-lit room to make it flee. I can then go back in and use the key and power on a conveyor belt of dead bodies. Using the gaps in between the body bags, I make my way to the room and back to the room with the third joint plug. I drain the bloody water and head into the machine. But when down there, the ladders retract. The blade starts spinning and the conveyor belt started. I kill zombies while the machine is running until it stops. I can then grab the third joint plug to go back and collect the other 2 I had used earlier. And once I had all 3 in my inventory, I went back to the prison cells and plugged all of them in, opening the cells and freeing Emily. All I can do now is run, so I sprint through the basement until I reach the elevator. Grace sets Emily down and we had just about got away, or so we think. The very monster that has been chasing us starts to break through the elevator, clawing at us wildly. So we head through the elevator door to escape, but get grabbed. Grace spots the elevator cable is snapping and her leg is at risk of getting cut off. She puts up a fight and the elevator drops. This part I've been not wanting to watch and see a part of her leg missing, but luckily for her, it was the monster's hand that got cut off instead. We now had the last piece to open the door and leave the hospital, earning a trophy for reaching the courtyard. At the end of the courtyard, we bump into another survivor and he is trying to leave using a helicopter, but he doesn't have the keys, so we leave Emily with him and go searching for them. We start by looking in the cabin next to us. Inside there were no keys, but I do find a fake wine bottle that had an item in it, but I had no idea what it was used for. So I look all around the room to find anything I can use it on. I find an hourglass first and still have no idea what to do before I eventually stumble across a console in the room that was missing a piece, and that's where I could place the item from the fake wine bottle. And once added, the floor started to move and revealed a door into an underground lab. Here there are lots of experiments in containers, but luckily they're all locked, so I can walk right past them and eventually find the helicopter keys. I then open the locked door and go into the next room where we see Victor on the phone to someone and he seems happy about something he has accomplished. But as he leaves, alarms start blaring and the lab is collapsing. I run to escape while dealing with the now escaped enemies, avoiding most of them and make it back to the helicopter. Grace hands the pilot the keys, but is urgent he takes off immediately, as it is a horde of enemies surrounding us. They are all over the helicopter and the pilot manages to take off, but crashes into a building and then into a tree, impaling himself. We're now back as Leon in the office where we left him, and he sees the crash as well as the horde of zombies. He grabs a rifle in the room and we run until we reach a balcony. Here we use the rifle to defend Grace as she is trying to get Emily to safety in the nearby church. Once she was safely inside, Leon slides down the roof and rushes to help them. And once he is inside, a large zombie breaks in and Leon gets Grace and Emily to safety and gets ready to take it on. It is very obvious weak spots on his body, but when each one is destroyed, it creates a burst of blood that transforms one of the other zombies. This still doesn't prove difficult for Leon, and I'm able to beat the zombies, allowing Leon to start to catch up to Grace. As Grace now, we are looking for an exit with Emily, but run into a dead end, and also spot the monster that has been relentless in its pursuit of us, lurking in the shadows. So we place Emily down, grab some supplies, lock her in the room for safety, and have just one goal: kill the monster. I first run to open the roof shutters, but as expected, it doesn't have any power, so we drop down and look for a way to power it up. There's just one problem. We are now in darkness, so the monster was in its element. But there are lights to help defend against it, and shooting it with the Requiem also stuns it. And the first time this is done, I earn a trophy. All 3 levers were not too difficult to get activated as well. The Requiem and other equipment helped make the monster a non-issue, and once the power was activated, I made my way back up to the top, open the shutters and shoot the monster, finally killing it. Grace now rushes back to Emily, but she is no longer breathing after her injuries from the crash, and Grace attempts to resuscitate her using CPR and believes she is successful until she starts to transform. This is when Leon shows up and can see the only option is to shoot her. Grace, unhappy with that choice, leaves, and we can see Leon is getting worse from the T-virus. Grace bumps into Victor, Gideon again, and a Wesker wannabe, and decides to go with them, leaving the K Center and earning another trophy. Leon's investigation now takes place where it all began for him, Raccoon City. Leon is back to investigate the centre of the blast zone from where the city was originally destroyed, as Sherry had found out that the strike that was originally thought to be sent by the government to eliminate the threat of the virus spreading was actually sent by someone else, and that fact was covered up. So we're here to find out what was the real reason for the strike and what was the target. I do some exploring and it is a wasteland. There doesn't seem to be any sign of life, but that doesn't last long before we bump into a new threat, a giant spider. Leon, in typical fashion, doesn't flinch in the face of danger, attacks the spider and then uses a nearby building to get away. I run through the hallway, cutting down spider webs, and then the spider crashes through a wall. We run into a dead end and are thrown through a wall, allowing us to get away. I continue to climb up through the building until I reach an opening, and now we have to fight the spider. I stand my ground and throw a grenade and then get hit by the spider and instantly die. The second attempt goes a lot smoother, and I keep avoiding the spider's attacks while also trying to focus all my attacks on its weak point located at its back end. It takes a lot of damage, but I eventually manage to take it down and crash through the floor, landing in the subway. I then make my way up to the surface and find a barricade that we need to get through, and someone had already started to build what appears to be an explosive device, so we just need to find the last few pieces to finish it off. Leon then stumbles across an old BSAA station, powers up the generator and uses a laptop there to find out what it was used for. But this also notifies Victor that Leon is now in Raccoon City. We also find a storage supply chest, and this allows Leon to purchase weapons and upgrade them using points. These points can be earned by either collecting bands on the floor or by just killing enemies. For now, I go on with exploring and work my way into the building to start finding the parts I need to finish the explosive. And upon entering the building, Leon asks a very good question. Where are all the bodies? It's not long before we find out exactly where they are, as they start to emerge from the ground and the rubble. Unfortunately, I wasn't expecting the number of enemies to appear and get overwhelmed and die again. But I got straight back in, and this time I'm able to take out the zombies carefully because I'm now expecting them. So I carefully make my way through the warehouse onto the second floor and eventually get to the roof. And here we find the first of the 3 parts that we need. And while up here, Leon uses the vantage point to check for areas of interest and get an idea as to where the other 2 parts could be located. Once that is done, I take the lift down and go back to the supply chest and make my first purchase, earning a trophy for doing it. I then continue to explore and get shown how to perform a stealth kill on an enemy, which will be useful to help conserve ammo. We then encounter a gate block in the path, and we need 2 batteries to power up the gate to open it. For the first one, I climbed into the herd of vans in the flooded section, taking out any zombies in the way, collecting the first of the 2 batteries from a room in the corner, and then made my way back to the gate and inserted the first battery. It was then on the second one now, and for this I need to go further down. I drop into a small area, find a valve, and take out 2 enemies, and start to move the obstacle block in the way, and as it starts to open, another one of those large enemies we fought in the church earlier appears. I kill it, and the zombies that it transforms to get through to the other side, and climb the stairs, making my way into a room with the second battery, and head straight back to the lock gate, insert the battery and open it, giving Leon access to a completely new area of Raccoon City. On entering the streets, Leon sees a bunch of dead BSAA agents. We watch the head camera of one of them and see that they were killed by the Wesker wannabe, who appears to have similar superhuman abilities. But I have to go back to collecting the last 2 parts needed. First, I go into the locked gas station, as I need to power up generators for some areas of the city, so it makes sense to go get this first. Find an empty fuel can and head back towards the fuel tank, and this is when a horde of zombies appear and the gas station goes up in flames. I take on the horde but get caught off guard and get hugged to death again. The battle starts all over again, and I make sure to keep my distance from the zombies this time, especially the ones holding the chainsaws. Once all have been killed and the flames die down, I can then fill the fuel can. I continue exploring the area to collect items first before going for the last 2 parts, and I have been combining all recipes to make one of everything, as there was a trophy for crafting one in Resident Evil 8's DLC, so I thought I'd try it here, and I was right. Once the last one was crafted, I got another trophy. Now I can head back up to the roof and power up the generator there that opens the locked door. This now gives me access to a zip line to cross over to another collapsed building. I then make my way up through the half destroyed and collapsing building, eventually getting to a part where the glass windows are the floor, which helps in dealing with zombies but can also cause a death if you're not careful. I continue to explore, eventually finding the second part that I can combine with the first. I then use a lift to get back down, fighting off zombies to get to it, but while riding it, too many zombies jump on and it breaks. We fall into a pit filled with zombies, too many to take on, so Leon's only option is to run and get back to the surface, earning a trophy. There's just one last part to collect now, and that was to be found in the same building all of those dead agents are in front of. Before I went into the building, I did a little bit more exploring, killed more zombies, getting a trophy for killing 300 of them. I then make my way up to the roof of the building where I now have to be careful, as there are some zombies using mortars. So I carefully navigate my way around the roof, avoiding the shells as best I can, taking out all the enemies in Leon's way, and finally grabbing the final part and combining it with the two already collected. I can now head back to the detonator and blow up the blockade. Leon is now riding a motorcycle found in a BSAA container through the city to get as close to the centre as possible. Here we bump into Victor again, who has an RPG at his disposal and a load of zombie wolf-like creatures running after us. We're given a machine gun with unlimited ammo, so this section is not too difficult at all, and I take out all the wolves with very little issue, and while chasing Victor down, I'm able to stop him shooting at us one time during the chase, which earns me a trophy. This was a nice section in the game. Usually parts where you're on rails in games like this can be a bit boring and a little bit difficult, but this wasn't too bad. They were able to keep the chase entertaining throughout. There's even a part that sees Leon live up to his badass status as he drives up the side of a building and jumps off at the top of it onto another below, which was hell of a risk to take, as I couldn't see there was anything for him to safely land on until it was too late. The chase finally ends up with us facing off against Victor and charge straight at each other, and Leon shoots his bike, sending him flying off the edge of the destroyed bridge. Leon then gets off the highway after this chase is over and ends up in a very familiar place, the exact place his life changed forever, Raccoon City Police Department, and arriving here gets another trophy. Once inside, I go around exploring because a part of me was curious to see what had survived the missile attack. The answer is not a lot. Most of the building is blocked by debris, but once I had explored what I could, I decided to get back to the objective, which needed me to open up a shutter. And I had a pretty good idea where the jack I needed would be, and once opened, we bump into Grace, and she is being shown footage of why she is so important, and this drops us into another flashback. This time we are playing as Grace when she was just a little girl living in the orphanage in Raccoon City. The night she is remembering, there are a lot of other children with glowing red eyes killing anyone they find. She hides under her bed until they all leave the room and then makes a break for it, running downstairs and then hides again under a table just as one of them comes crashing through a window from the second floor, landing right in front of us. Luckily, they don't see Grace. I then go through the door they went through and find two of them just standing in front of the door. I try to trigger them to move, but get caught and grabbed by one of them and end up dying. I try again and this time get them to move so I can access the next room. I grab the key on the wall, but another child dives into the room, so we run and hide behind a pile of boxes and wait for them to leave. As soon as it is safe, I run for the hatch and run through the corridors, finding what looks to be a church. A wall starts to open and lever is able to be pulled, opening a gate. I then use the coffins to climb over the fence in there and grab a steel rod. There is one problem now though, the children have found Grace. So run back to the wall that had opened up, dodging the children, and use that very rod we just grabbed to pull down a ladder, climbing up and finding ourselves inside a lab. Grace then stumbles across a slideshow showing the progress of an experiment which ends with a photo of her. A scientist walks in on her, but before she can ask what she just saw, he injects her with something, putting her to sleep and ending the flashback. At this point, Leo makes his presence known and fires his gun. Not the bullets will hit this Wesker wannabe, but that's not the least of our worries, as we are instantly greeted by a very old friend, and Leon gets knocked across the room. But remembering that Tyrant can't take a hit, he shoots out the crumbling ceiling, burying him, and hopefully slowing him down. but unfortunately not for very long as he comes crashing through the wall, blocking Leon's path. So we run upstairs and into a room blocked by a part of a helicopter that starts to move. And I think I've backed up far enough, but find out that that wasn't the case and Leon dies an incredibly painful death. I don't make the same mistake again though, and I make it back to the main hall. But when we turn around, the tyrant is nowhere to be seen, which is never a good thing. We now leave the RPD through the back wall and into the street behind, entering another familiar place for Leon, Kendo's gun shop. And on our way through, we stop in front of the door to a storage room where Leon remembers seeing Kendo and his daughter who had turned, and to this day appears to still wish he was able to help them both. After walking through the storage room and checking ammo on the container outside, I make my way towards a parking lot full of rusted cars, and a cutscene starts, showing the tyrant on a roof behind us, and he throws a missile at Leon, who luckily avoids it by hiding behind one of the cars. The tyrant drops it into the parking lot holding a second missile, but Leon manages to shoot it, transforming him into a super tyrant Leon had to face off against on the elevator at the end of Resident Evil 2. But Leon is now more experienced in fighting all manner of mutated monsters and people, and this experience makes this a completely different type of encounter. Instead of running down the clock and waiting for an RPG to help us finish the fight, we use our guns and hatchet, shooting the tyrant's heart until he drops to his knees, opening him up for an attack with a hatchet. And once enough damage is done, his heart pops and the tyrant is defeated, earning another trophy. With the tyrant taken care of, we now make our way into the orphanage, or what is left of it at least. We drop down under the building into a tunnel of sorts, but quickly find our way back outside. Leon then finds his way onto a subway train and takes out a plant, but doing so causes the train to start falling. Leon manages to jump to safety, leading to one of my favourite one-liners from him.
I guess this is my
We
start.
then drop into the large hall and run through it, taking out all of the plants that we bumped into along the way, and earn a trophy once the last plant seedling is killed. That wasn't the last plant though. We now have to deal with the main plant, but this is a very simple fight. Just shoot the head when the plant opens up and dodge the vines. And once enough damage is done, a truck full of explosives opens up, which we can then shoot, killing the plant and letting us open up the door behind it to enter the Ark and earn another trophy. Now the Ark is simple to work through, as it isn't really much to explore. I go into one side room, but mainly just make my way through the corridor and into what appears to be a security room showing footage from cameras. And this is how Leon finds out where Grace is and how to get there. But while we are getting this info, some soldiers are en route to Leon's location. I take out the first group, and in the next room there are more to deal with. They do get the best of me a couple of times, but I do eventually manage to defeat all of them, and when I explore further in, we bump into a soldier that is ready to take on Leon solo. There is a bit of a fight, and we go crashing through a glass window into the room below, and this is where we find out the soldier knows who Leon is, and we get my favourite one-liner from Leon. This fight, it's easy to use the parry mechanic and fight with a hatchet. It's not too difficult of a fight, but when it ends, it does not end very well for this soldier. Back up to where we fell from earlier then, and through the door, we find Grace. Leon is unable to beat her captor, but thanks to her distracting him with the threat of killing herself, Leon is able to break a part of the platform, which he then uses to get him and Grace away to safety and into the lower levels of the lab, earning another trophy. We are now back as Grace, as Leon is now looking a lot worse and not able to escape from this pit. So with his help, we climb out in search of a way to help him get out as well. So we go and end up in more labs looking for a way to get Leon out, but encounter an enemy I've always hated, Lickers. So now I really have to make sure to play it safe and try and sneak past them as much as possible. There are acid bombs where we pick up and later craft, which can kill them in one, but they are not the only enemy that we need to avoid. There are also some very pale zombies, which, unlike the Lickers, can actually see us. I'm able to grab the override key and start making my way back to where we first dropped in downstairs. I do die the first time, but the second I make it down to use the key, freeing Leon and gaining another key to use. I then head back upstairs, avoiding the liquor, and back into the lab we got the first key in, as there's another locked door I can now open. And in here we find a red animus orb. I don't know what it does yet, but it looks kind of important. I head back to the save point and unlock the second door, and it's here I find where the animus orb goes, and there is a second empty slot. And since it's lighting up in the shape of the umbrella logo, I guess I'd need to find a white one next. I explore the section I hadn't got to yet in search of the second orb and find a lot of lickers and zombies, making this section again a bit of an awkward one to deal with, and it takes a good few attempts to get past all the lickers and zombies, working out which ones I need to take out so I can get to the room with the orb in. I eventually grab it and head back, but before I go and place the orb into the slot of the door, I enter a side room and open the final safe in the game, earning a trophy for doing so. I then place the orb into the door and enter, watching the cutscene, and then swapping back to play as Leon. And this appears to be the end of the game and possibly the last time I play as Leon, as the T-virus has now really taken its toll on him, causing his symptoms to be worse and affecting him more physically. But like the badass he is, he powers through, and Leon finds himself in a large room with more lickers to deal with. And this is where I actually try and go for a miscellaneous trophy, as I didn't want to have to try it in future runs. This trophy was for cutting off a licker's tongue using the hatchet. And the obvious way this needed to be done was to parry its attack when it flicks its tongue, which is easier said than done. My first attempt didn't go so well, and I get overpowered by 3 of them and I die. The next attempt, I keep trying to parry attacks while taking out 2 of them, so I can eventually be left with just one I can focus on. And as soon as I'm left with just that one licker, I'm able to parry the licking attack, cutting off their tongue for the trophy. I then complete exploring the lab and go back up to a room where the lickers is sat on the ceiling, taking them out and other zombies that appear before taking the lift and stumble all the way down the corridor, collapsing just outside the door at the top of the staircase. Grace then finds Leon in a really bad way and carries him into the room with Elpis. Now, on our way into the room, Leon tells us we need to destroy it. We are left to put the password in, and Zeno thinks we will be unlocking it and giving it to him. But when I'm given the option, I pick to destroy and follow what Leon wanted. This causes the arc to start to self-destruct, and Leon, even in his incredibly weak state, throws Grace to safety and goes to take on Zeno. But he is no match for him and is brought to his knees before being executed. And this ends the story with Grace reaching the surface and being collected by a helicopter. I earned 3 trophies for beating the game on Standard, Standard Classic and Casual, and I'm just left in shock at this point. I can't believe it. Leon is actually dead. I'm wondering what would have happened if I chose the other option, but I don't have to wait too long to find that out. The game gives a pop-up message asking if I want to go back in and pick a different option. So I immediately pick yes and dive straight back in. This time picking to release Elpis and not destroy it. And once it is released, we actually find out it's not a powerful bioweapon, which we are led to believe. It is in fact an antidote to the very T-virus, which makes Zeno lose his superhuman abilities. This is also where Victor suddenly reappears because he just simply will not die and takes out Zeno. And he goes to start the destruction of Elpis himself, while at the same time Grace injects Leon with one of the vials, curing him of his infection and getting him back fighting fit just in time to take on Victor one more time. So using all the weapons at my disposal, I beat Victor's first phase and he then transforms into a giant monster. Here I need to shoot all the big red blobs, which are his weak points, and after enough damage is done in the fight, he grabs Leon, who breaks free from his grasp and hits him with his hatchet before finishing him off with the Requiem. And just as the base starts to collapse and they think all hope of getting out is lost, they are rescued by Chris Redfield's team, ending the game again, but the right way this time, and earning me another trophy for picking the release Elpis ending. With my first playthrough completely done now, I was really impressed with the game and still enjoy the contrast of action from Leon as a veteran in the environment and the horror aspect of Grace, who is new to the field. It was a really good experience. Now here I check and see that I had 12 trophies left to earn, and there are collectible trophies. One was for opening 3 BSA containers, and I found 2 in my playthrough. Another for reading all the files, which were 75 in total, but I was actually impressed to find that I read 69 of them already with no guide, which did shock me a bit. And the last was the Raccoon dolls, and I'd found 15 or 25, which again shocked me. I thought I would have been lucky to find more than 6 or 7 of them. My target for the next playthrough wasn't going to be to get these. No, I was going to try and earn 3 of the playthrough related trophies. I wanted to get the no healing run, no blood collector, and the 4-hour speed run done, all in one singular playthrough. So for this, I start the game again on casual, which is the easiest difficulty. This is useful for the no heals because if I do get badly hurt, health will regenerate to a minimum amount, and the enemies won't hit as hard. And this playthrough is very simple to get done, as I knew what to do already, having just beat the game, and I was very familiar with the Resident Evil games as a whole now, with me having just got 100% in the other 8 as well. So while going through this run, I found the container that I missed on my first run, earning me the Create Expectations trophy, and I also earned the trophy Credit Where Credit Is Due, which is for earning a total of 200,000 credits as Leon across the playthroughs. And when I eventually make it back to the end of the game and have to make a choice, I make sure to pick the release Elpis, because the speedrun trophy requires it to be that exact ending and not the destroy ending. And once released, it was just a formality to beat Victor again and get the Never Touch the Stuff trophy, Minimalist trophy, and Speed Demon trophy. Next then, I went for the last 2 miscellaneous trophies, the first being to get a zombie to attack and kill another in the hospital, which I managed by going to the room with the zombie that doesn't like noise and the other that hates mess. Here, I smash a jar, and when they both meet, the one that really hates noise starts swinging what the IV drip he has and kills the other one, earning me the trophy. Then it was on to the 5,000 microsamples collected trophy, and this one is cumulative across playthroughs. But I knew I wouldn't really need to use it in the next run so much, so I decided to use the same save point in the hospital and kill the chef. Once I had killed him, I went and saved in the nearest safe room. I now had a quick checkpoint restart and could start my loop, which was to collect 100 blood samples he drops and then restart the checkpoint, putting me right back to the second before I'd collected 100, but it still counted towards my total. This was a fast method for me, as it meant I wasn't running all over looking for other samples, and I didn't have to use the samples I collected to be able to collect more. And it wasn't long before I finally collected the last blood sample needed and got the trophy. There was now just one playthrough left for me to beat, Insanity. But because I had beaten all the others, I had plenty of points to spend on bonuses and unlocked unlimited ammo and unlimited ammo RPG. This made the Insanity run really easy, as in the hospital, Grace had an infinite ammo Requiem and Leon had an RPG to take out most enemies. I did also remember that when you play as Grace at the end in the arc with the lickers, she would only have her machine pistol, which is okay, but not a fast way of taking them out. So to help with this when I get there, I still made sure to collect the empty bottles throughout the game, but kept all of them for when I got there so that I could combine them to make more acid bombs. And because this playthrough was going to be easy, I was able to collect the last of the files and raccoons I was missing on my way through it, earning the trophies for collecting all of them. And when I got to the end, the final boss fight ended as quickly as it started with a shot from the RPG, getting me the trophy for completing the Insanity run. But I couldn't get the platinum just yet. I had one last thing to do. I had to purchase and view all of the models and then all of the concept art. And once that was done, I earned the platinum. Now, as I said earlier, this is a really good Resident Evil game. I don't think it's quite my favourite of all of them, but it's definitely closer to the top of that list than it is to the bottom. And as always, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, especially if you want to see me try and platinum Red Dead Redemption in one 24-hour live stream, because as soon as I hit that 1k subscriber milestone, that will be the next challenge I take on. But thanks again for watching this far, and I will catch you in the next video.